Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Political Activation. I'm your host, and today I'm going to be talking about the critique of the infrastructure package. Obviously, the infrastructure package is a $3.5 trillion package proposed by Congress to assist in any infrastructure issues around the country, such as highways, other things related to federal government spending, like normal infrastructure. Even hospitals, including roads, highways, hospitals, public government buildings, public parks. I think it includes all of that into the package. But with that being said, it's part of this huge spending spree that the Biden administration is going on for a long time, because of the fact that the Biden administration seeks reparations for the COVID-19 pandemic and the Build Back Better agenda, plus the other spending package that he currently proposed are two of the essential packages that are built inside of this Biden administration, this recovery, as he so called it during his run for the campaign, his campaign for presidency. And that's important to notice as well, that the president seeks to repair the damages that were initially caused by the previous administration. Now, the question is this president going to fulfill his promises? Now, that's a hard question that I think we won't necessarily have an answer to anytime soon. However, we can speculate on maybe the possibilities behind, why this president is spending as much as he is spending to probably boost the economy from the crash that was previously instituted by the other president. The crash that occurred last 2020 of March of 2020 was definitely the turning point of the Trump administration, because the economy was soaring before that occurred, and since the crash of the pandemic, it seems like it's all up to Biden to simply steer this ship back on a course, so to speak. And it seems like he's doing that. We have yet to see many of these spending packages come to fruition, in states. But we are seeing various spending packages being allocated to, state governments. Even my home state of Michigan receives a lot of state funding, and that's a great thing from the Biden administration. But the question is, are we seeing these spending packages impact these areas that require it most, that need it the most? And I don't think we're seeing that, and that's unfortunate. And I think that there can be more done on that front. For example, AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez went on the congressional debate floor to make a speech and said, we are spending way too much on defense. We have these defense contractors who are utilizing the resources in a negative way, creating negative value. And there is no need for that when we can be spending all of that money for funding childcare, funding housing, funding education, funding roads, infrastructure. But instead, we're using that to spend on defense contractors. We have these mega corporations, these defense contractors in the Pentagon, preparing for a war, preparing for a military standoff between countries, and that's simply what they're built for, and that's their main mission. And I don't find any blame. We need defense in our country. We need to be protected by the military. However, she has a point, and she makes a good point when she says we have spent so much on these nuclear weapons. We have built these nuclear weapons that are completely not even in use. They're not even useful in the 21st century anymore. These are from the Cold War era, back in the 20th century. And we don't really have a use for them. So why keep them? So she proposes that we should just, get rid of them and take them out and maybe disassemble them so we can save money and save various ways of doing things. We can change the way that we do things in the government as it currently stands. My main critique of that particular way of mode of thinking is she's critiquing the defense, the defense, the Department of Defense in a very illusory way. So when I say that, it's kind of like she's critiquing the way that the money is allocated, but obviously we know the money is allocated based on the reasons from the generals. The generals come up with a presentation to Congress to give to Congress, and the Congress decides whether or not to give that money to these generals that ask for it for various different reasons, and that's specific to each particular general. And generals know their military personnel better than everybody because they run, they are the highest ranking officers in that military industrial complex, and that's sort of how they do things. And they require resources to contract these military men and women, and that's why they require those resources from Congress. Otherwise they won't be able to conduct any operations across foreign lands or across many different areas in the world. That's why we have a lot of bases around the world. Even we have an embassy in Afghanistan, we have an embassy in Turkey, we have missiles in Turkey, we have bases near Russia. So those are great reasons to give resources to these generals that run the military industrial complex the way they do. General Milley being one prominent, notable example of that as well. But the main problem of allocating these resources to military operations rather than priorities in the domestic sphere is we don't have equality among people who seek the basic necessities. Now, the basic necessities are obviously, what are the basic necessities? Housing, clothing, education, healthcare, things along those lines, the basic primal instinctual necessities that people in the country require to actually live. We don't have that as like a basic necessity in this country. In the United States, they have that in Canada and other places that are very socialist. So that's AOC's typical punchline with regards to the infrastructure package and the spending going on in the economy. And she has a point, but it just seems that Congress just doesn't want to act upon that particular the way of doing things. I'm not sure if they've ever tried that way of doing things, but it would be interesting to see how allocating some of the budget from the defense into the budget of infrastructure, for example, will play out in the long-term future. And seeing other examples of other countries who have done that, for example, Canada and Sweden, Denmark, and other ones that do the same way of spending, for a couple decades now. They have seen success, but the problem with the United States, I think the difference between the United States and other countries is the population is so large that it's difficult to attribute socialism to any of the solutions that might be the right solutions for this country going forward. However, we know that this has worked in different countries, and it serves a great purpose. Even in countries like Switzerland or countries like Sweden in the Norwegian area of the world, they use infrastructure dollars. They use government spending to create free healthcare to everyone, access to healthcare for everyone. And you can simply go to the ER, or you can go to any medical facility and receive free treatment, and you won't receive a huge bill for that. That's partly the responsibility of the government, to cover with regards, because that's what they decide to choose to spend their money on, But, in the terms of the United States Congress, it's mainly a matter of how much money can we spend on the military? How much money can we spend on defense? What's our technological advancements in the Defense Department? And, it makes sense to be very involved in defense. However, it has its downsides as well. And some of those, like I said earlier, are you allocate money towards defense, then you miss the opportunity of allocating money towards, priorities going on in the domestic sphere. Priorities such as housing, education, healthcare, childcare, other things that require assistance as well. So those are critical things to be said. And even roads and infrastructure is going to cover roads, and so that's why Joe Biden's policies seem to be doing a heck of a lot more things than Trump's policies before. And it makes sense that these are more effective. These are more effective at tackling some of the greatest issues in the country. If we took notes on what are the most important issues in the country, those three things would be part of it. Roads, education, and housing. I think those are the main three things that could be, picked at in terms of spending, as the government, gets this package of $3.5 trillion to spend on whatever they please per year, and they're allocating it towards the states so they can spend it as well. And the infrastructure package is just one critical step forward of achieving Joe Biden's plan of a 21st century economy, which is something to behold. It's something to be interested in, and it's definitely going to be a heck of a lot more effective than previous economies. And the reason we see it already affecting the nation in a positive way is because we've already recognized these policies as being what we needed, and he's taking it from the people themselves. He's getting this information from the people themselves, and polling data and other things that can be used to political science research that can be used for these purposes to figure out what is the most pertinent issues that require the most resources. Defense may be on the top of the list, but it's definitely not the most important one, in my opinion. I think it's definitely one of the top 5, but not the most important one. And therefore, other spending sprees are required. Other spending allocations are required. But the infrastructure package is a step forward in the Biden's plan to take a step in solving the main issues of the 21st century. And that's what a president is supposed to do, is solve the issues of the contemporary modern time that they find themselves in. That's why one of the biggest skills, one of the biggest leadership qualities is moral leadership in the context of times. That's why Abraham Lincoln was ranked so high, ranked number 1 on that scale, on that quality, and many other qualities as well. Because in the context of his time in 1860, he had such a revolutionary mindset with regard to the economy. It was absolutely a critical line of thought that he believed in and implemented, eventually succeeded, but then got assassinated before he could fulfill it. So, that's what the Biden administration is trying to do, and I think they'll accomplish it. It just depends on other factors, obviously, but I think he'll accomplish it. It just takes a little bit of time for that infrastructure package to distribute across the state, and I think it's going to be okay the way that they handle this. And I have trust in the Biden administration, and I don't have any gripes of it, but I think it's going to be fine. But thank you all for listening, and I hope you have a great day. Goodbye.